best investing advice you've ever gotten?
Start now.
Buy low, sell high.
Take 10% of every check and invest it.
Where do you look for investing advice?
Online, just look on YouTube.
Just Google and hope for the best, if I'm honest.
Have you ever invested before?
I invest a lot into my cat.
What's the best investment you ever made?
Dogecoin.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know it was gonna blow up the way it did.
What's the worst investment?
Probably like an NFT.
Do you find that it's hard to save for the long
I
term?
do, especially in this economy.
Do you think most people know enough about investing?
I wouldn't say this generation. No, not really.
Should they?
Yes, I mean, it's basically your future.
Thank you.
Today, I'm a financial reporter with a master's in quantitative finance. But in my 20s, I was living off my credit card, and I wasn't thinking about investing. Many in the current generation are not like that. They're pumping stocks, trading crypto, betting in prediction markets, and getting a lot of unregulated advice online.
Pay attention, because I'm going to tell you guys a hack to make easy money in crypto.
This guy just turned $527 into over $100,000, and I think I may have just found the next big meme coin to do something similar.
I see a stock going up and I buy it, and I just watch it until it stops going up, and then I sell it, and I do that over and over, and it pays for our whole lifestyle.
Many people don't have extra cash to invest. Almost half the country doesn't have enough savings to last 3 months. But the barriers to trading are lower than ever before. And with the stock market still near record highs, is this the opportunity for generational wealth? Or a siren call for suckers?
What do you think the question is that you get the most around investing these days?
How to get rich quick.
What do you tell people who ask you how to get rich quick?
I mean, I make a little joke. I'm like, if I knew, I wouldn't be here. I'd be doing something else.
What Kyla Scanlon is doing goes back to the pandemic.
I graduated in 2019, and so then the pandemic hit.
She's a data nerd with an artistic side and a deep understanding of the economy.
And I had been trading options all throughout high school. All right, so this is
She also has a knack for going viral.
Recession, yield curve, the flashing red belt. Economics, is it even real?
Will it hit 100K again? Probably, right? Like, who knows what'll happen in the next couple of years.
I'll be talking about it.
It wasn't a recession, it was a vibe session.
A TikTok star has been putting a name to what a lot of Americans are feeling.
The vibe session.
It's just this idea, as you said, a disconnect between how people feel and what the economic data is saying.
Right.
Lately, she's had her hands full, fighting misinformation, explaining the price of eggs, and making little clay creatures as an antidote to the mania of markets.
With markets and the economy, they can feel really intangible. So
Stressful.
Yeah, very much so. And so it's nice to like have physical things to manipulate.
It's the same reason I like to make pie.
Really?
Yeah, it calms me down at the end of a hectic market day.
Yeah.
You and I are sitting in a crazy market day right now. I think the market is crashing as we're doing this. I just counted on X and Instagram. You had almost 500,000 people following you. It's more on YouTube, too.
I think 700,000 across everything, which is nice.
Did you think that it would ever get that big?
No.
Did you think it was going to be your career?
No. I remember telling my parents that I was leaving Capital Group, which was like this really stable job. I was like, I think I'm going to go and try this thing where I do investment education. And they were like, what are you talking about?
Cutting costs is
Why do you think it worked so well? Why do you think that people latched on to what you were telling people on the internet?
Rolling them back.
I really try to be really honest with people, and I tried to be as unbiased and objective as possible. I try not to be alarmist. I try to be straightforward. I try to help them understand the world around them so they can make better decisions. I'm on there every day, and I just set my phone up and kind of talk into it. Like, it's very personal, and it's not, like, very polished. Some might call it janky in terms of my editing. People might appreciate that, like, direct contact.
Do you think it's because people are kind of craving for authentic advice on money?
Yeah, I think so. I try my best to provide them that, answer questions, because it is really hard out there. There isn't good resources, or, you know, there are good resources and it's just not reaching people.
It's overwhelming.
It's super overwhelming. And I do my best to just distill down everything that's happening through the newsletter and the short form videos and long form videos.
Why do you think Gen Z looks mostly to their investing advice on the internet?
Most of them invest via apps. They grew up learning from YouTube. It's very natural just to keep on relying on social media for those sorts of things. There's still a lot of financial advisors who are playing a big role in Gen Z's lives. But if you're not able to, you know, afford that, or if it feels a little out of reach, like, the internet's a great place to go.
Maybe it was the anxiety. Maybe it was the stimulus checks. For whatever reason, amateur trading exploded during the pandemic, and the number of Americans who directly own stocks jumped from 15% to 21% in just 3 years, the largest increase on record. The subreddit Wall Street Bets rallied the online masses to boost GameStop's shares. Users bought into meme coins and NFTs while trading predictions about the news on Polymarket and betting on sports with FanDuel. All of a sudden, it seemed like everyone was playing some kind of market. But not in a slow and steady Warren Buffett kind of way, more like a cynical quest for pain and profit during a surreal, historic moment.
Around the pandemic, so many people started to trade.
You were seeing crazy things with GameStop and AMC, and you were able to read about all that stuff on sites like Wall Street Bets on Reddit.
I feel like so many people saw so many get-rich-quick stories, and how many of those are really out there?
People lie, too. Like, it's a huge headache on social media, and it's like half of my battle is to sort of talk to the fact that a lot of people are lying about their returns, and they're lying about how much money they've made. There's like a pump and dump kind of community happening where people will push up the price of a coin and then get a bunch of people to buy it and then sell out on the top and leave these other people holding the bag. Then I totally get where people are coming from. And I think, like, with the advent of meme coins and sports betting, you're just faced with this giant pressure cooker all of the time to make a bunch of money. And it almost feels ridiculous if you don't participate in Argentina's meme coin thing that happened. It's like, well, you know, you just missed out on generational wealth.
I mean, by and large, do you make more money by trading in and out of markets, or just by, you know, by finding long-term investments and holding them like Warren Buffett did?
Yeah, I think most people are better off just buying and holding.
Why do you think it's important for people to invest?
Historically, the way that we've taught people to build wealth is through buying a house. And that's really just not accessible, number one, to a large portion of young people right now.
I think a lot of people don't realize in our parents' generation, people bought a house and the price went up over so many years, and they were able to build a lot of their wealth that way.
Boomers are like basically 20% of the population, and they own 38% of homes nationwide.
You made this amazing point once that I heard about how if you're not inheriting wealth, then you have a problem. I mean, there's only a certain subset of society right now that is getting wealth from their parents' generation.
I think basically the top 5% inheriting from the top 5%. And so it's a very concentrated amount of wealth that's going toward a very concentrated segment of the population. But it's going to be a massive amount of wealth. That's why investing is important, because generational wealth has to start somewhere, I guess.
Some of the greatest investors in the world, when they think about investing, they think about investing through the long term. They think about the idea of compounding, which is putting money in the market or money into savings and letting it grow over time. But here's the problem. A lot of Gen Z doesn't want to do that. They want to trade in the markets. They look to financial influencers who may have gotten rich quick. But the reality is most people don't get rich quick. They let money grow over time.
Generational wealth has to start somewhere. But if you can't buy a house and you can't trust what you see online, where do you start?
It's so good to see you.
How are you? Good to see you.
Mellody Hobson has worked at one place her whole life, Ariel Investments, where she is now co-CEO. The firm focuses on stock picking, staking individual companies for the long term, doing deep research and hunting down opportunities that others have overlooked. In other words, the opposite of social media-driven trading.
Wait, so you do a black coffee every morning?
I do Pike Place, or if I'm treating myself, I have a oat milk cappuccino.
Okay, what are we doing today?
So today I think I'll have an oat milk cappuccino.
I'm gonna join you.
But just
I'm gonna do
plain.
your order today.
Hobson has been on many boards, including JP Morgan, Estee Lauder, and most famously Starbucks, where she served for nearly 20 years.
Have you been busy?
A little bit busy, but it's fun.
Yeah. You have the new drinks.
Yes, we have the lavender and the chai.
Hobson is passionate about financial literacy, the knowledge of how to budget, save, and manage money, which isn't always taught in schools. Only 28 states have adopted policies requiring a high school course on financial literacy to graduate. Hobson even wrote a children's book, Priceless Facts About Money, which the state of Maine purchased for every fourth grader.
How do you give someone an elevator pitch on who you are?
A squirrel trying to get a nut.
Elaborate, yeah.
That is what I tell my husband. I'm just a squirrel trying to get a nut. And then whenever I say that, he says, but you have a nut, meaning him.
Yeah. You didn't grow up with a lot, right? You've talked a lot about how when you were growing up, your family struggled to pay the bills, you faced evictions. Can you talk to us about your childhood a little bit, what role it played, and maybe who you are today?
It's everything. I mean, it's who I am. I said very recently on a podcast with Oprah that my childhood trauma became my purpose. So I grew up with a single mom, and there was just a shortage at all times. So we would get evicted, our phone would get disconnected. There was a time we were living in an abandoned building. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Really traumatic when you're a child.
How do you think that your upbringing made you think about financial literacy?
I had this mom that was remarkable in some ways and a great lesson in what not to do in others. She put money front and center for me, mostly in revealing to me and showing me all the issues. It was a lot to take in as a child. I knew our light bill, our phone bill, our rent. Whenever I have early memories, I've had the early memories of scarcity and issues with money. She always made me pay for things. In any store, any restaurant, starting when I was a little kid, put the money on the table, count the change, calculate the tip, whatever it was a very big part of my life. She'd go to the bank and she'd say, check the account number against the receipt and make sure it went into the correct account. I remember that like it was yesterday. But at the same time, she then would make these decisions like buy Easter dresses instead of paying the light bill. And that was something that I found to be very arresting and destabilizing. And so as a result of that, I had these conflicting lessons that made me desperate to understand money. So my financial literacy was not taught to be by my mother. My literacy, I learned. And I learned by deciding that I wanted to learn. I was desperate to understand money. It was not about how much I would have. It was just, if I understood how this all worked, I could make better decisions and perhaps be more secure. And as a result of that, I poured myself into that study of money from when I started working at Ariel.
Ariel was founded by John Rogers in 1983. He initially raised $500,000 and launched the first Black-owned mutual fund in the country. He recruited Hobson right out of college.
John Rogers, he's my family now. So he started as my boss. I was a pipsqueak, I was an intern.
Squirrel chasing a nut.
Always been chasing the same nut. And that's another nut. But John fundamentally helped mold me as a person in business, from both the minutia to the big picture. There are so many things I learned from John. They are in my DNA of how I behave and how I work and how I do things. He would sit and read Morningstar reports. We would be on airplanes and he'd say, look at this portfolio. Of any portfolio manager, they'd show the top 30 holdings. He'd say, is it original portfolio or not? And he started to get me to learn who did original investing. And then he would ask me why. And I'd say, well, I've seen that stock in every portfolio. Exactly. I've never seen this name before. Exactly. You know, and we would go through and he would literally teach me, literally, about how to be a contrarian investor. When you think there's only one way, things often move in the other direction. Our contrarian point of view is not contrary for contrary's sake. Our contrarian point of view is really based upon the fact that if you want to make money, you have to do things that other people don't do. If you buy the same stocks as everyone else, as the old saying goes, you get the same results.
Right, I feel like people look at a stock go up and then they say, I want to buy it. But then they don't realize the stock has already gone up.
Everyone describes the stock market as a roller coaster. They're like, it's a roller coaster. I said, it's so fascinating as a concept because in a real life roller coaster ride, when you're at the top of the roller coaster, you feel the most anxiety. And when you're at the bottom of the roller coaster, you feel better, except for in the stock market.
Right.
When you're at the top of the stock market, you feel great. And when you're at the bottom of the stock market, you feel terrible. And we reverse that in how we think about investing. When it's up here, it's frothy, we get nervous. The only way to go is down. When we're down here, we say to ourselves, there's a lot of upside. And we want to make money, not lose it.
The market has gone up in this massive way, and a lot of investors, and even people who are just entering the market for the first time, they haven't felt that pain of losing real money in the market.
These are the moments where you use volatility as your friend. Warren Buffett talks a lot about that. You buy into these weak moments and you hold for a long period of time. You're not trading, you're investing. To the extent those messages get out, I think people in this environment can make a lot of money.
It is just fascinating.
Warren Buffett, possibly the most famous investor of all time, just announced his retirement at the age of 94. He's known for his pithy advice. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. If you aren't willing to own a stock for 10 years, don't even think about owning it for 10 minutes. And be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful.
I think you should look for the job that you would want to hold if you didn't need a job.
Where do you see Warren Buffett in the way you invest?
Everywhere. A foundational part of our investment strategy is a lot of what he writes about and says. And obviously he does it with such brilliance, and he's got probably the best track record of any human living in terms of the length of it and the magnitude of the returns that he's generated over his lifetime. He talks about investing within your circle of competence. We know where our areas of competency are, and we look to build on them and accumulate knowledge to make us better in those circles of competence, as opposed to looking at another circle and saying, we don't know anything about it, but need to learn it. We think that's how you make a lot of mistakes.
It feels like after 2008 in particular that you have a kind of an American public who look at the world of finance and say, money was only made for specific people.
Well, I don't agree with that. So first and foremost, I am a capitalist. The capitalist system is the best system in the world. As people challenge it, I'm always saying to them, give me a better system. That is not a system that I would tear down. And I think that is what makes dreams come true in this country. 2008 was a traumatic experience, certainly at Ariel and in the financial community. And there was great loss in our society during that period for those who were everyday people who unfortunately terribly lost houses and things like that. But you saw whole institutions wiped out and the equity that went with that for those individuals. There were a lot of lessons that were learned. And I think those lessons learned allowed us to be more resilient in difficult periods since then. I believe in what do we learn from that so it doesn't ever happen again.
How much do you think that the idea of mobility has changed in this country? Do you believe that you can start off working at a McDonald's and start to save and eventually, become someone closer to looking like you?
I think we have a society that has a lot of work to do when it comes to making sure everyone has a shot and making sure there is ample mobility like we've seen, in decades past that allow the American dream to still continue. That is not something that I am cavalier about, or I think, well, I did fine, so everyone else will. I know how hard it is. I know how the universe had to align itself. I had to have so many things go right for me, so much luck, so much effort, but both in order for me to get to where I am. I know that it is not an easy thing to do, so I think we, as a society, need to recognize that we have to do a lot more to make sure that that opportunity is really there for everyone. We have mutual fund customers who invest $50 a month. I am not in any way distanced from the reality of real life in this country, family members, to the extent that people are able to retire financially secure. They can pass on money to their heirs. They can have their kids go to college. And that's our job, to grow their money so that they can have a better life, or to grow the money for the institution to be able to do more if it's an endowment, or for a pension fund to pay its pensioners. And those people are always at the forefront of my mind, and they are tied to my own experience.
I think the stock market is really intimidating to a lot of people, and Mellody Hobson has a lot of very straightforward advice. It's what you would hear from Warren Buffett too, which is don't buy what everyone else is buying at very high prices.
Buffett said you don't get rich fast, you get rich slow. But the next generation is desperate to build wealth now.
I wanted to take you to do one of my favorite things, which is walking the Brooklyn Bridge. We were talking so much about investing. All of it kind of started here, but now people are looking online. What do you think is different about Gen Z? This is a generation we've been talking about. It's kind of been hard to build wealth in a lot of ways. How big of a problem is that?
I think it's a pretty big problem. Like the financial nihilism that drives the decisions that people make about not saving for retirement or like racking up a credit card, they're like, well, none of this actually matters. And so it is going to influence like if they choose to save for a house, what career path they might choose. For this generation, they are very disillusioned, they're very mad, they're extremely anxious, and they're extremely distrustful. And so when you look at how somebody invests based on just that profile, they're gonna be like, giving the money fast, I don't care. And like, who can blame them? It's not their fault, it's just how they're feeling.
So how do you think about what you want to invest in?
So it really is what I spend my money on. So I fly United Airlines quite a bit, and so I own United Airlines stock, but I also keep it pretty diversified. So a lot of my money, and none of this is investment advice, but a lot of my money is in the S&P 500 because that's a great way to just get exposure across the board. But I also own like utility ETFs, and I own Sweet Green because I like their salads. And so I just try to keep it diversified. And I also own crypto, and I also own some gold, I own some bonds. And so I have a pretty wide-ranging portfolio.
How much money do you save versus invest?
The way I do it is I put $50 every month into the S&P, no matter what. And I'll allocate more if I can, but $50 every single month is what I do.
What does financial literacy mean to this generation?
I mean, I think it really boils down to financial freedom, understanding that overarching umbrella of how the entire system works, and then being like, okay, I need to save, I need to invest, I need to have goals, I need to think about my job, but they need to have the tools to understand how to do all of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tough news out there. Is it worth it? Is it worth doing all this work to learn how to invest?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the day-to-day news flow can make it seem like it's not worth it. Like, it's just pure nihilism, it's scary, it activates our fight or flight all of the time, but it is worth it, especially if you think on a long-term horizon, which I challenge everybody to do. It's totally worth it.
There's a famous story about a con man who tricked people into buying the Brooklyn Bridge with the hope of making easy money off of tolls. There's a difference between trading, which is buying and selling for the short term, and investing, which is the long game. Just remember, if it sounds like easy money, someone might be trying to sell you a bridge in Brooklyn.
Have you ever looked at your retirement accounts?
Not really, because I'm married. My wife looks after most of it.
My retirement? That's really far. Oh my gosh.
My plan for retirement? That's a great question. I should start thinking about that, shouldn't I? Because I don't have a plan.
So do you think people should be learning investing in school at a young age?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. My dad used to have me handwrite my tax returns, so I think it's very important.
Do your parents talk to you guys about investments?
Yes.
What do you know about investing?
It's important in your life.
Save money.
How about you?
She likes to spend money.
Do you want to invest one day? Yes.